recognize a few faces in here, so it's good to see some familiar faces, but a few of them obviously I don't. So I figure it's always a good idea for you to understand why it is that I'm standing up here instead of a guy who's about 30 years older than I am with a lot more gray hair. Because that is who I actually trained from, the gentleman who actually ran this business for a really long time. But I believe that the reason why I'm here is because of two reasons. Number one, it's because I've been where you've been. Let me explain what I mean by that. I've taken this test. I've actually tried to go into this career. And so I know what passing this test could mean. And I take that responsibility very seriously, okay? And the second reason I'm here is because of the fact that I have a passion of working with people. I see purpose behind this class, and I, once again, have been given a gift, I truly believe, of teaching, of working with people. And actually, if you read through your pre-study, you would actually recognize that, right? Because that's my mission statement. I thought long and hard, what are some things that sum up Andrew Kemper in 3 words? And passion, purpose, and people are it. Right? I'm passionate about what I do. I see purpose behind the class, and I absolutely love working with people. So you now have a fan. All right, I am a super fan, if you might not have been able to tell that, because my Green Bay Packers mug here, if that doesn't tell you what kind of a fan I am, I could actually show you my Green Bay Packers wallet. Not many people, I'm sure you know, have friends that have wallets of their favorite sports teams, but I'm also your fan, right? And so if you've been looking for someone maybe to support you or kind of root you through this, you got it, right? That's just who I am. But I also figure it's a good idea for you to know a little bit about me professionally. So I actually did start out as a teacher. So good news. You're with a teacher, right? I've actually have a degree that says I should be teaching at this point. However, there is no such a degree called insurance education. But I did get a degree from Emporia State University. Any Hornets in the house today? Yeah? All right. It amazes me here in Wichita. I barely get anyone who went to Emporia State. So I'm glad to have a fellow Hornet in the house. But I also run a very engaging, very interactive classroom. Of course, those of you who are taking class with me remember this. But what I want you to do is, and of course the people who have had taken class with me can't answer this next question, but I want you to throw out ideas of what you think I got my degree in education in. Okay, so you now know I'm a teacher, but I ask of a lot of classroom participation, so this is your first test. Right? I know it's early on a Monday morning, but I just want you to throw out any idea of what you think I got my degree in education in. What kind of practice, I guess you want to say that?
Elementary ed?
No.
Chemistry.
No.
Communications?
No.
Special ed?
No. Although my sister has a master's from Baker in special ed.
Nice.
Come on. There's a few of them you have.
Physical education?
See, that's the one that always kind of like makes me suck in the gut a little bit more. No, it's not PE, but makes me a little bit more self-conscious anyway.
Economics.
No, God, no. Sorry, that was a bad reaction. I just remember my economics professor. No.
Yeah.
There's one that people always guess because of the beard. I don't know why. I must have the look of a...
History?
There you go. Yeah, history. No, I'm not a history professor.
Philosophy?
Nope. Think outside the box. Think about a class maybe you had to take as a kid, but you didn't really have to take as you got further and further into school. What are some of those electives that you...
Speech.
Nope.
Art.
What's that?
Art?
Art? No. And you'll see why here in just a second when I start drawing up here on the board.
Psychology?
Nope.
Writing?
Music.
Ah.
I'm a K through 12 vocal and instrumental certified teacher. However, I've never actually taught. I've never stepped foot inside my own classroom. But since now you guys know that that's my degree, I want you to know, you'll be my soprano section over here. You guys will be my alto section. I need you to turn in your books. No, I'm kidding. I won't make you guys sing. But I do want you to know that you are in the hands of a teacher. Okay. Teaching was what I wanted to do ever since I was a kid. I love music and I love kids. And I was like, oh, must be a teacher, right? Unfortunately, as life would have it, I didn't actually step into teaching right out of college. I stepped into the world of retail. And with retail, I actually managed 2 specific companies. One you may have heard of, one of them I know you have. The first one was a company that kind of went away about 5 or 6 years ago, but it was called Movie Gallery. Has anyone heard of Movie Gallery? It was a video store, kind of retail chain like Family Video, Blockbuster, things like that. There weren't a lot of them here centrally in Wichita, but a lot of surrounding communities. And the one I worked at actually was in Emporia. But then after that, I worked for a company you should all know and love, Enterprise Rent-A-Car. We'll pick you up. I was part of that corporation for about 6 years. And as luck would have it, within that career, I did really, really well. They taught me how to run a business, taught me how to run a staff, taught me how to manage an inventory. It was truly some of the 6 best years of my life. But as luck would have it, also with that kind of career, you kind of get to the point where you're like, I can't learn anymore. So either I'm going to bust through this ceiling or I'm just going to try something else. And I tried something else. And that something I tried was outside sales. Now let me say this with the utmost sincerity. I think you guys are going to be awesome at outside sales. I truly believe that. However, there are specific people God intended to be good at outside sales and some who he didn't. And I am one of those who is not. And it took me a few years to figure that out, but I truly say this also with the utmost sincerity. I believe the reason I sucked so bad at sales was so that I could finally realize that my true path in life was to actually teach, because I was so bad there, it actually led the path right here. They gave me the job here because I knew how to manage a business, but then they quickly found out that I knew how to teach as well, and they're like, gee, can you actually learn from the guy who's been doing this for a while and step in? And guys, in the year and a half I've been doing it, I truly found a new life calling, right? And it's to work and help people along this path, right? Because I know what getting past this test could mean. So now you know a little bit about me. You know that why I'm here, a little bit about my passion and my character. Also, you need to know another thing. I'm very protective of you guys, and I'm going to make sure this is a very good environment for you, but I'm also very protective of my business. And because I am, I've got a few rules that we have to go over real quick. So as you see anything up here on this screen, it's coming directly from the book that you have in front of you. That's why I asked if you had checked in with Keaton. So everyone go ahead and open up your book so you can see this first page here. Of course, the book that you're in, this is the manual right here. That's your first sticker. That's the one you want to be in right there. This manual that we handed to you when you walked in this morning, this is yours. So you can make any notes, obviously highlights, pencil marks, whatever you need to in it. But as we walk through these rules, I just want to kind of hit on a couple of key points. I don't like playing the role of the heavy. I'm not good at it anyway. So we'll just get through the unfun part and then we'll get on into the rest of the class. So please no talking while the instructor is talking. I think that would pretty much stand to reason. Please no talking while the other students are testing. So we're going to be taking some practice tests over the next couple days. So I want to make sure that we leave this room as silent as possible during that practice test time, just to make sure that we're respectful of everyone, because you're definitely not allowed to talk in your actual testing site. So we're going to leave this room silent during that time. Please keep all distractions to a minimum. That means loud candy, chewing gum obnoxiously, chopping ice, cracking knuckles, clicking pens, getting up, walking out frequently, spit wads. That one always scares me just a little bit, why that one's even there. The instructor has important points to make and needs everyone's attention at all times. So I think this all boils down to one word, and it's respect, right? Just, do you need to get up? Yes, I'm sure you do. Just be respectful of it. Don't make a lot of noise. Do you need to have food, drink in here? That's fine. Just once again, be respectful of it. Try and be respectful of both me and everyone else around you. No sleeping in class. Please be respectful of both the instructor and your fellow classmates. If you do feel tired or ill, please excuse yourself from class. Now, the reason why I worded this rule this way is not because I'm kicking you out. In fact, it's just the opposite. Because if you fall asleep in my class, the only person you're really hurting is yourself, right? Because I don't give you a grade, right? There's no evaluation here. And I want to make sure that you stay as engaged in this material as much as you can. Now, of course, we are talking about insurance here. So I understand there's going to be times during which you're going to try and slip off into what I call la-la land. If that does happen, please just identify that, walk out, get yourself a cup of coffee, get a donut, walk outside if you need to, splash some cold water on your face and come right back in, okay? Because if you start becoming disengaged from the material, it could be 2 or 3 or even 5 or 10 minutes before you become re-engaged, and we're probably 3 or 4 steps, maybe even longer ahead, right? And then you're gonna feel behind and feel rushed, and I wouldn't want that. Please no excessive note-taking as well. Let the instructor guide you on formula of what to write, when to write it, and sometimes what not to worry about as well. See, if you're one of those people in high school and college, like my wife, who filled out notebook upon notebook of classroom notes, you may not do well in this class. And the reason why is because when you take notes, what are you doing? You're putting the speaker's words into your own, right? And sometimes that takes a minute, and it takes a few minutes to kind of formulate what you want to say and how you want to write it. Guys, if you do that, I speak very, very fast. I kind of have to, though, in order to get through all the material that we have to get through over the next couple days, okay? So do you want to take notes? Absolutely. Take notes in that manual, though. Be very short with them. Do a lot of highlighting, do a lot of underlining. right? There's only going to be 3 or 4 times over the next couple days where I'm going to have you deliberately writing out a set of notes, and that's just because of stuff that's not in your book that I want you to have time to go back and look at later, okay? Try to ask relevant test-related questions. Too many rural questions might distract us from the true point that I'm trying to make. Allow the instructor to clarify or explain the concepts presented instead of interrupting me with questions. Now, I don't want to take it to that nth degree, especially in a smaller classroom like this. We're going to afford to take some questions, and will you have questions around the next 2 days? Of course you will. I mean, it's not physically possible to listen to as much material as I'm going to be giving you over the next 2 days and not have at least one question. But here's one of the things that you need to watch out for, though. The test you're going to take is a very general, very conceptual test. This is not a specific test, and it's not going to be testing you over your policy. It's not going to be testing you over the company policies you're going to sell, right? So I might say something that you need to remember that's test specific, and you're like, well, wait a minute, that's not how my policy works. You're probably right. But the test or the policies that we're testing, or we're getting you ready to test over, are very generic, very conceptual ones that they actually have adopted across all 50 states. It's called the ISO form. It's a generic insurance form that almost every company that's represented in here had to take a form of this and then adapt it to their own policies and their own procedures. All right. So what that means to say is, once again, will you have questions? Will something not look right? Will you hear something and you're like, well, wait a minute, I've never had a claim that's worked that way? Yes. And if those are your questions, please come and talk to me outside of class, right? Come and talk to me during break, come and talk to me during lunch. But if you do feel that it's test relevant, go ahead and raise your hand. I'll be happy to answer it. But do me the professional courtesy that if I believe that it's not test relevant, and if you raise your hand and ask me a question for me to come back to you and say, that may not be on the test, will you mind if we moved on? It's not because I'm trying to be rude, definitely not because I'm trying to push you through this thing as quick as I can. It's not true. What I am trying to do is make sure we stay on topic. See, if you ask a question that's not test relevant and I start answering it, we may get into a 5 or 10 minute rabbit hole where all of a sudden we're like, holy crap, where in the world are we? We need to get back on pace, okay? Because I'm sure everyone else here wants to be out of here at 5:30 tonight, right? Mm-hmm. I know I sure as heck do, okay? So that's another reason why. So here's the rule. If you want to ask me a question, please do so. But if it begins with these 2 magic words, what if, you may not want to ask it, okay? Because what if might get too specific, right? And these are the words I never want to hear. This may not be on the test, but yeah, come and talk to me during a break or lunch, just so we can try and make sure we stay relevant to the test. No copying of the practice questions. It's copyrighted material. Just simply listen to the instructor's explanation. These books that you have in front of you, these test books with a big NTS on them, those are copyrighted, right? And so if you were to copy those questions, which we're going to ask you not to do, that is a violation, and I will have to ask you to leave class. Also, something that we have been known to ask people to leave as well is for taking pictures of them. Guys, taking pictures of this book is just the exact same thing as copying them. So please just don't let me catch you doing it, and I need you to police each other. If you see anyone doing it, please come talk to me. Right? I'm going to try and protect you from yourself, though. We're going to try and keep this room locked, especially during lunch. Do you want to get the most out of these practice tests? Absolutely. But let me do that for you. Okay? Taking this book home and like taking the same test over and over and over again wouldn't help you. Trust me. So I will give you the best ways to get the most out of those practice tests. Also, stay professional at all times with your language and your positivity. Let's just take a really quick poll. How many people think you're getting ready to take an easy test? That's what I thought. Okay, so we know it's tough, right? We know it's tough. We know it's tough. We know that we've heard the horror stories, right? Oh my gosh, you're never gonna pass, and it took me like 3 times or 4 times or whatever. Guys, who cares, right? That's not you. And that's not me. That's not this class. This class is going to have a personality all of its own. And so my job, in fact, I've given myself a professional charge to do 4 things, and that's to keep you positive, upbeat, encouraged, and motivated. And yes, I'm very good at my job, but I'm not with you throughout this whole process. I'm not with you during break, not with you at lunch, definitely not with you at home tonight. But what I want you to do is take a little piece of Andrew with you. Right? Be positive, be encouraged, be upbeat. Know that I'm doing everything I can, and you're going to do everything you can to get past this test. Will there be times during the next 2 days where you're going to feel overwhelmed? Where you're going to feel like you're not getting it? Yes. You're not human if that doesn't happen, at least once, okay? You're a robot, all right? But what I'm trying to make you understand is that's human to feel that way, and it's okay. But don't allow that to change your mindset. Still stay positive. Know that we're going to do, Norris as a company is going to do everything we can to get you passed, and you have to do that as well. Okay? No, cell phone use is the last rule. Prohibited at all times, you're asked to turn off your cell phone during class. Not just putting on vibrate, even small things like texting, playing games, or checking email can be a distraction to you and others around you. There'll be multiple breaks during which you're free to use your device, but please be respectful of the instructor and others who wish to pay attention. If you saw that policy could result in dismissal from class and forfeiture of your enrollment fee. That's always a good reminder for me to do the exact same as well, so I just put mine on silent. I would suggest that you do the same. This is our advertising warning. All information received from any Norris training course, including books, questions, and handouts, must be approved by your insurance company or broker or dealer before use with the public. Why do we have to give this to you? Because, guys, you might see something, especially today. I've had people say there's a chart that we use today that they think is good to use with your clients. Don't. Right? Remember, the test that you're taking is a general test. It's not over the particular policies that you guys sell or are going to be offering. Could it be very similar? It could. But any material that we give you over the next 2 days, and that means in my manual and also the review sheet I'm going to give you here at the end of day 1, you cannot use any of that with the public. All right? If you do, that's considered to be an advertisement. Right? If anyone's read through your pre-study, this should not be new information. Right? Any item you use with the public is an advertisement. And there's one cardinal rule when it comes to using advertisements, and that you can't ever, ever, ever use one unless it's been approved by your company. Okay? So that's just our warning right there. This course is one of a series of scripts written by Norris Training. It's a pre-licensing course, and the material has been approved by the Kansas Board of Education. Although Norris puts forth a great amount of effort to assure the accuracy of the material presented, but do not warrant that accuracy and will not be held liable for any errors or omissions. What does that mean? Everything in the book is wrong? No. Everything that needs to be right is. Right? But sometimes we have some old statistics in there. Why? Just because we're trying to make sure you understand the big picture idea of something. If there's a number up here, or a fact up here, that you might think is test relevant, but I know isn't, I'll be sure and point it out. But 98% of the material that's in this book is accurate. Everything that you're going to be tested on is accurate. Okay, so we just want to make sure you know that. Policies are examples used now that originate from basic forms or an actual policy and do not intend to depict any particular company's policy or format. Once again, speaking to the fact that I'm not here to train you on your company's policies or your company's procedures, right? I'm here to do one thing, and that is to do what? Get you past this test. That is my job, right? And I'm very good at it, okay? But once again, if you start getting into the mindset of, well, that doesn't jive with this, or that's not very true, or I've never had it work that way, you're already putting yourself 3 or 4 steps behind. Honestly, if you've had no insurance experience whatsoever, you're actually better served walking into my class. Why? Because I'm starting with a blank slate. Sometimes when people have some insurance knowledge, it actually works against them. So if you have any insurance knowledge whatsoever, I'm going to ask you to check it at the door for the next 2 days. Let me kind of build that foundation from the ground up, get you past this test, and then frankly, about 90% of the things I teach you, you're not going to need in real life, okay? It was to get you past the test, and that's it. Which kind of minimizes, I guess, what I do for a living, but hey, whatever. Duplication of this booklet is strictly prohibited without the express consent of Norris Training. Even then, I do not warrant its correctness. All right, so let's talk about your test. Your test is 156 questions. You have 2.5 hours in which to take it. Out of those 156 questions, though, are you graded on all 156? No. You're not. There's actually 16 questions in this test that won't even count toward your grade. And I say that not to scare you, I actually say that to encourage you, because will there be a question or two where you're like, what in the heck is that? Andrew never spoke about that. I never read anything about that wasn't in the pre-study. Yeah, there's going to be a couple of them, not many. But there'll be a few of them. Guys, there very well could be those questions that won't count toward your grade anyway. Why are they there? They're trying to test if a question's too hard, too easy, too ambiguous, trying to figure if they're going to add it in or take it out. Okay, so that's just why those questions are there. But out of those 156, they're broken down into these subjects right here. Where do these subjects come from? Guys, these came directly from the Pearson VUE website. Right, so the Pearson VUE website actually has a link where you can download about a 4-page content outline for your test. You want to know what you're going to be tested on? Go to their website. I can tell you how to get to that link if you have any questions on that. I'd be happy to show it to you. This is a much more broken down, or a much more simplified version of that outline though. But these are the type of subjects they're going to be testing you on, and how many questions they're going to be asking you over every single subject. Okay? And in fact, as you look over here, this should hopefully put your mind at ease, because I and my company will not leave you high and dry on any of these subjects. We address every single one of them. But as you can also see, there's subjects over here that we don't address during class. We're all adults here, and you've got to take some personal responsibility back on yourself. I know there was some difficulty with the pre-study, getting to people ahead of time, and I do apologize for that. You're not behind, by the way. Okay? You just got to take some accountability, though, to make sure you spend some time in that pre-study, right? Because there's a couple of sections that we're not even going to go over once we're done going through the pre-study test here in just a few minutes. Okay? So you've got to take it on yourself to go through that pre-study, but there are sections over the next 2 days that we're going to be addressing all of these. Also, your test is divided up into 2 major sections. The first section is over federal law, and the second section is over state law. 112 questions over federal law, and then 44 over state. So yeah, you're going to get the bulk of the questions that you're going to hopefully do well on the federal side, but do not just ignore the state part of this test. You could very well make or break your test on this side. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But on the federal side, you're going to get 112 questions, question after question after question after question. The very first thing I say, and I know this really sounds really kind of elementary, I don't care. You'd be surprised how many people actually tell me they don't do this. Every single question has to have an answer. Even if you don't know what the right answer is, I don't care. Put something, right? Do not leave a single question blank. Because here's what could happen. You get done, and then all of a sudden you feel like you're running low on time, and instead of going back and reviewing, what do? You jump over here to the state. Guys, if you jump over to the state section of this test, after you're done with the federal, you cannot come back. You're locked out. So here's what I want you to remember. If you get done with all 112 questions and you have time, which I hope you do, don't hit submit, hit review, and it jumps you all the way back to question number 1, okay? So please make sure you leave enough time to go back and review. But if you didn't, at least you know that you answered every single one and at least gave yourself a shot, right? You never want to leave the testing center knowing that you left points on the table, right? At least give yourself a 25% shot. Now, are you going to know the answer to every single question? No. So this is what you're going to do. You're also going to be marking questions for review along the way. And the test allows you to do this, no problem. And what it also allows you to do then is when you hit review and you come back here to question number 1, you can automatically jump to places in this test now. You don't have to click all the way through. So marking questions for review actually to me does 2 things. Number 1, helps you go back and review the questions that you maybe not have been as sure on, but it also gave you bookmarks in this 112 question test, right? So you can actually jump to specific portions of your test. Like you make yourself a note, like questions 45 through 55 kind of gave me a hard time. Well, now you've got a bookmark you can jump through. You didn't have to mark every single one for review, okay? Now, once again, when you're done with the federal side and you're done reviewing, you're gonna move on to the state. Same idea, question after question after question. Mark every single one of them. Do not leave a single one of them blank. And when you're done, do not hit submit, right? Because when you hit submit, your test is done. You can't come back. You will hit review, but remember, it only jumps you back to question 113. Does not jump you back to question number 1. Okay. Mark questions for review along the way, so you can have places to jump. And then, of course, when you hit submit, at that point, your test is done. Okay. So 2 different sections, but do not hit submit if you're not completely happy with the federal side. Okay. When you are done, though, this is the test, or this is the sheet that prints out. Tells you how you did. Now sometimes people call me up and they say, hey, great news, Andrew, I got a 98%. No, you didn't. You looked at that number right there, and that's not the number you were supposed to be looking at. Why do I know you didn't get 98%? Because I've never gotten 98% on this test. I haven't heard of anybody getting 98% on this test. This is the number you're worried about right here. Okay. Right? It has to be higher than 98. But let me ask you a question. Out of 156 questions, 140 of which you're graded on, if you only have to get 98 of them right, is it okay to miss a question? Or 2? Or 40? Yes. And you have to be okay with that. See, there were students like me in high school and college that were 100% happy with my C's. Right? I was happy with my 75, 76%. At least that meant I did the work and I got my grade. But I know there's some of you in here that you weren't happy with your C's. You needed that 95, you needed that 96, you had to have that 4.0. Guys, if you are one of those, if you're a perfectionist by nature, that's not going to help you in this test. In fact, it's actually going to hurt you. Because here's the perfectionist mentality. It's not okay if I miss a question. And it is okay if you miss a question, because if you don't think it is, here's what you're going to do. You're going to get a question, and if you don't know the right answer, what are you going to do? You're going to stew on it over and over again. Well, I should know the answer, I should know the answer, and you're not going to move on until you think you got it right. Guys, if that happens, you're going to continue to put yourself behind, further and further behind. And I have had perfectionists literally do worse on this test than I've had people like me. Okay? So just kind of check out of that mentality. It's okay to miss a question or 2 or 40 of them. Right? Now, I'm not hoping that you do. I'm hoping to get you between a 72 and 84. That's my job, right? That's what I tell myself, is to get you between a 72 and 84. Why? Because that meant I did my job, gave you enough information, and got you past this test. Okay. So as you're looking over here, once again, these are the number that you could have gotten right. This is how many you did get right, and of course the percentage. Now, this percentage over here, none of these percentages have to be 70% or higher. This is the one that has to be 70% or higher. Okay, that's the cumulative one. Once again, to say, if you don't do well in the federal part of this test, you can bring it home with a solid performance on the Kansas. Okay, and once again, we'll hit on that in a little bit. But that's how your score sheet is going to look when you're done. If you have not scheduled your test, or I did hear a few of you as you were coming in that you have a test that's not scheduled for this week, I would highly recommend, if it fits in your schedule, to try and get it rescheduled. There are plenty of times during the next 2 or 3 days where people who had tests for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday will have to cancel. All right? So I highly recommend trying to do this test within the week of ending class. You're taking a cram course, guys. I'm going to be cramming as much information down your brain as physically possible in the next 2 days. You do not want a lot of time to elapse between now and then. Okay? So if you need help with that, though, Keaton's here all day, so am I. We'll be happy to help you out with that. There's 2 ways you do it. There's the number right there, or you can go to their website. 4 different testing sites here in Wichita, or it's down off of Callaghan Rock, and then, of course, there's one in Overland Park, Topeka, and in Hayes. Okay. If anyone has any questions where any of those locations are, just come and ask. All right, so we're not going to get started with chapter number 1 yet. What I want to do now is I want to go through the pre-study test. This is the test that was at the back end of the pre-study that was sent to you, or maybe was handed to you this morning. So if anyone does not have a copy of that test with them, I have a few extras here. Does anyone need an extra copy of the test that was at the back end of your pre-study? There you go. Anybody else? Okay. We're talking about the test that's at the back end of this document right here. Everyone good? Okay. So for those of you who actually did have time to go through and read this pre-study and take this test, you all got 100%, right? Yeah, that's a joke, by the way. I know when I first took this test, I think I got like a 50%, and I'm like, I'm in trouble. You're not. Why do we give this to you ahead of time, though? Because we want you to have a pretty solid understanding of most of these terms, concepts, very basic insurance knowledge, though. But what we're going to do is we're going to break these questions down one by one. So if you haven't taken this test yet, take a lot of notes. If you have taken this test, take a lot of notes. Right? This is yours. And I figured, and I honestly believe, that this time that we're going to spend together, the next hour, hour and a half that we're going to spend together, is some of the most important time we're going to spend over the next 2 days. Because I'm going to teach you a lot about test taking technique. Right? How to eliminate bad answers, how to put yourself in a good position to get the right answer. So please take a lot of notes. There's a lot of things that we have to break down, but there's 2 major things that we're going to do during these test review times, and this is not only true of the pre-study test. This is going to be true of any test we take over the next 2 days. Number 1, you need to listen to how I read these questions out loud. Okay? Now I'm trying to stay a little bit more soft-voiced just because of how vocally tired I am. But I will still try and give them emphasis, right? I'm going to try and give them pauses. I'm going to try and read them in my voice. I'm going to try and actually I'm going to try and make them personal to me. And the reason why you have to do that, guys, is because if you're anything like me, you could have a tendency to read articles, read books, read even a question, and you're like blinking and you're like, holy crap, what did I just read? Mm-hmm. Right? So you've got to find ways to personalize it. Because time, of course, as we already said, is of the essence on this test, and we don't want you to waste a lot. So I'm going to read these questions out loud. I want you to listen to how I read them. Now, of course, you're not allowed to read questions out loud in the testing site. They get a little mad if you do that. But you are allowed, once again, to make them personal. Put them in your words, right? Even if you have to rewrite them. I've had some of my students do that, where they give you a marker board and they'll rewrite the question, or they'll illustrate the question on that marker board just to help them out. And then the second thing that I want you to do is focus on why it's the right answer. And let me be very clear on something. I don't care if you know what the right answer is. I really don't. My job isn't to make sure you know what the right answer is. I actually truly believe that it's 10 times more important for you to know why. So what do I mean by that? If you took this test 10 times in a row, by the 10th time, you get 100% on it. And it's not because you would know why it's the right answer, you would know what. It's muscle memory. I don't want that to happen here. You need to know why it's the right answer, okay? And so when I break these questions down, I'm not gonna just say, yep, the right answer is this, moving on. I want you to know why. So take a lot of notes. Also, if you're just still struggling to figure out not only what the right answer is, but why. So we'll start in with question number 1. When I read it out loud, I do ask for classroom participation. It's not for my benefit, it's yours. So it's trying to help you keep you engaged. So sometimes if I ask for the answer, I'm just looking for the letter, but sometimes I'm looking for a specific word or phrases. And as classes go along, you're gonna understand that. You're gonna kind of get in my pace and my rhythm, and you'll understand why I do that. But a good example of this is question number 1. When we start off, it says, a self-insurer deals with risk by doing what? What was the right answer here? When I am a self-insurer, I am doing what?
Retaining the risk.
Retaining the risk. What does it mean to retain? It means to hold on to something, right? A self-insurer understands that they have risk, but they choose to do nothing with it, right? But you also need to understand what the idea of A is. So when I'm looking at A, if I'm transferring the risk, I understand I have risk, but now instead of doing nothing, I transfer it. What am I doing?
Insuring.
Insuring what?
With the company.
With a company. That's exactly right. When you transfer risk, the act of transferring risk is buying insurance, okay? And I've seen these kind of questions on the test before. That's why I'm wording it this way. You need to know what the act of transferring risk is, and that, of course, is buying insurance, okay? Number 2, an insurance agent must complete how many hours of continuing education? Now, as you were looking at this test question at home, you might have been very, very tempted to choose B. In fact, how many people did? I know I sure as heck did. Why? Because that looked like the right answer, didn't it? It said 12 hours every 2 years, and you recognize that phrase, right? You're like, of course, CE had everything to do with that. But why is that the wrong answer? Because you didn't read the whole darn thing. And this is the very first test strategy we're going to teach you, okay? And the very first test strategy we're going to teach you has everything to do with the name tag that's in front of you. Did everyone see that RTWDT tag that's in front of you, okay? Why do you think I want you to, go ahead and fold it up and kind of follow my example here. Why do you think I want you to have RTWDT facing you, staring at you over the next 2 days? Because before you answer any question on any of my practice exams or on your test itself, you're going to read through every single word of that question, and you're going to read through every single word of every single answer. Why? Because A could look good. B could look better. But if you choose B, you could cheat yourself out of choosing what was obviously the right answer in either C or D. Okay? The test loves to be tricky, and they love to take advantage of people who are impulsive. Right? They're going to give you a trick in A or B, kind of like how they did here, where they're like, oh yeah, that's my right answer. And they're going to make you think that you found it, but you actually didn't, okay? So go ahead and fold up that name tag, and I want the RTWDT facing toward you, and on the other side of it, though, I want your name, big bold letters, kind of like how I have it up here. I want to get to know you on a first name basis. Okay, I told you this is a personal experience for me, and so I'm going to be calling you out by first name. So I want you to go ahead and do that for me as well, just so I can get to know you.
I didn't get one.
What's that?
I didn't get one of those.
Oh, you may have sat at a place where we didn't have one. Let me go ahead and get one to you. There you go, buddy. All right. So that's the first testing strategy we're going to teach. So going back to B here now. It says 12 hours every 2 years in each what? Class of insurance. And the word class here is why this is the wrong answer. Guys, because property insurance is one class of insurance. Casualty insurance is another. But if I get my property and casualty license in the state of Kansas, how many of continuing hours of education do I need? 12. So it's not class, right? If that question had been worded, or that answer had been worded in each license, though it would have been. So go ahead and do me a favor, and in that column there, in parentheses, write the word license. I want you to know what word could have made that a right answer, right? 12 hours every 2 years in each license of insurance, absolutely, but that's not what it said. Now we eliminated A here. Why? Because A is the dead wrong answer, because it says 12 hours every year. If you read through your pre-study, you would know CE has nothing to do with every year, right? So that's easily eliminated. Then you go down to D and it says complete the requirements for a CLU or a CPCU. Do you guys remember reading about that in your pre-study? You shouldn't, because it wasn't there.
Oh.
But why in the world then do we give you answers that have nothing to do with anything that's in the material? Because Pearson VUE tests love to do this kind of stuff to you as well. And they're testing what I like to call your panic reflex. Because here's what sometimes people do. They read through a question, they read through all 4 answers, and if one answer stands out as something that they have no idea what it is, they convince themselves that they should know what it is, and they choose it as the right answer. Guys, that's not going to happen on this test. I'm telling you, about 98% of the questions you're going to see, you're going to recognize words, you're going to recognize phrases. It's not going to be something that's completely foreign to you, it's just going to be the application of it that you're going to have questions on. Okay, so on this test, if you see words, phrases, abbreviations that you don't know, don't give them that much thought, right? Unless you can adamantly eliminate all the rest of the 3 answers, which we weren't able to do here, you cannot choose it as the right one. So what did we do here? We eliminated B, we eliminated A, we eliminated D. Now we're left with C. Look what C says. It says complete the approved courses as specified by law every 2 years. Wow, how specific? Not. That's a terrible answer, isn't it? I mean, if we're trying to think of what the best answer possible could have been, I probably could go next door. I've got the Kansas law book, and I could probably give you 50 better ways to word an answer to a question that's worded this way. But did it matter? No. And here's why. Because when you're taking one of these tests, this is the second strategy. I want you to write it down. You can't look for the best answer possible. What do I mean by that? It means you cannot look for the one that you're expecting. You cannot look for the one that fits in your dictionary, the definition you're expecting. Why? Because if you were, guys, you would have chosen B here, right? You recognize that, and you would have been tricked by it. Or maybe you look through all 4 answers and you're like, holy crap, none of these make sense, right? I can't choose any single one of these. One of them, though, has to be right? It's a multiple choice test. So if I can't choose the best answer possible, I still have to choose the best answer, what? Not possible.
Available?
Available.
Available. Oh.
Yeah. Okay, so write that down. Don't look for the best answer possible, because if you are, you're going to come away from this test grossly disappointed. See, there's not a lot of these questions that are gimme questions, right? They're going to make you think. So you can't look for the one you're expecting. Look, though, for the best answer possible. Let me say this in a really non-PC way. If all 4 answers suck, find the answer that sucks the least. And I have had that happen on this test, where I looked at all 4 answers and I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? None of these make sense. But if you break them down, one of them actually is correct. The other 3, you're like, no, 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 no. And then, of course, the other one, it's a terrible answer, but I guess it's still the best one. Okay? And that will happen, I guarantee. All right, let's go and move on to number 3. A PNC agent must complete how many hours of continuing education? Let me ask you a quick question. Because of the similarities between 2 and 3, how many people actually thought this was a typo and you actually read the same question twice in a row? Sometimes people think that, and they'll get that on the Pearson VUE test as well. But we know there are some very big differences here, right? Because as you're looking at the right answer here, which is B this time, it says 12 hours every 2 years by their due date. Has nothing to do with each class now. And of course, this is now the right answer here, isn't it? 12 hours every 2 years by your due date, which of course is your what? Your birthday. Write that down, please. Your birthday is your due date in the year that it's due. And the year that it's due is based off of what year you were born. If you were born in an even year or an odd year, it's going to be based on that, okay? Of course, we eliminated A and D here for the exact same reasons. And then C is the wrong answer now because it says every year, not every 2 years. All right, now before we look at number 4, I want to look at 5, because in order to understand what 4 is, to me, I think you have to have a better understanding of what 5 is. So we're going to start off with 5, replacement cost value. Also on this test, abbreviated RCV, and you've got to be prepared for that, okay? RCV, replacement cost value, is what? What was the right answer here? It's A. The actual cost it takes to repair or replace at today's labor and material costs without allowances for deterioration, obsolescence, and depreciation. And the main thing that we insure RCV is our homes, our houses. So write that in the column because I want you to have some application here. When you insure your home, do you care how old your home is? Do you care what kind of condition it was in? Or do you just need a home back if it gets damaged? You just need it back, right? That's what RCV is, guys. I live in a house in Park City that was built like in 1950, right? It's old, it's got cracks in the walls, it's got a newer roof, but it's an old house, right? But if something happens to that house, if it's totally destroyed by a tornado, do I care what kind of condition it was in? No. And neither should the insurance company. If you insure something with RCV value, replacement cost, you're going to insure it at what it costs to repair or replace it at today's labor and material. See, what it cost to build it back in 1950, I don't care. Why? Because I'm not trying to repair it back in 1950. I'm trying to repair it right now. Okay? So that's how we need to understand what RCV is. Replacement cost value. I want it back now. Houses, buildings, right? Commercial buildings are insured with RCV as well. But we have to understand what RCV is to understand what number 4 is. Okay, so number 4, ACV, or actual cash value, right? They're going to be abbreviated that way, so be prepared. ACV is what? You have to take the replacement cost first. So replacement cost actually comes into play on both of them, all right? But if you're insuring something with ACV, look what happens. You take the replacement cost, but now you take out how much it depreciated, you take out how old it was, and you take out how much it may have deteriorated. The biggest one there, guys, is the word depreciation. Underline that, please. That's the one I see on the test used all the time. Okay, ACV is the cost it takes to repair it at today's labor and material minus how much it went down in value. And the main item that we use to insure at ACV value today is our what? Anyone know? It's our cars. Yep. Think about this, guys. I drive a 2007 Sonata outside. If I were in a wreck and I was insuring it with RCV value, what would the insurance company have to do? Get me a brand spanking new 2017 Sonata, wouldn't they? Is my insurance company going to do that? No. If they would, I'd go out and wreck it at lunch right now. But they're not going to do that. What are they going to do? They're going to replace it based on its value, right? Based on how much it went down in value, based on what kind of condition it was in. It all matters there, okay? So that's the difference between RCV and ACV. So we're going to see those two terms again, but I want to make sure you know what those are. Number 6, rates charged for insurance coverages sold in the state have to be what?
Adequate.
They have to be adequate, guys. What does that mean? They have to be enough to pay their what?
Property value.
No.
Premiums.
Well, no, remember, premiums have to be adequate. Why are they taking in the premium, though? Because they have to be enough to pay off their what? Claims, yeah. Right? I mean, they can't just charge you next to nothing for insurance. I mean, sure, the insureds would love that, but would they then have enough money to pay out their claims? No. Right? So that's why they have to be adequate, but they can't be excessive. They can't overcharge you for insurance in this state. Why? Because that would be an unfair trade practice, and we'll talk about some of those examples here in just a little bit. So they can't overcharge you, but they also are not going to undercharge you, right? Because they have to have enough money in their reserves to pay off claims. Okay, you also can eliminate C here really easily. Why? Because it's using that word discriminatory. That's a bad thing. So you wouldn't want to, you would stay away from that. And why can I eliminate D?
Because the commissioner doesn't set the rate.
He's not involved in this process at all, is he? Guys, let me give you some of the best advice I can give you for the state portion of this test. Get to know your insurance commissioner. Know his job, know what his job is specifically, know what his job is not, know how long he's elected, know who elects him, right? Know all of that stuff because that's all specific to our state, right? How we handle our insurance commissioner, and that's all in your pre-study, okay? But if I knew that going into this question, I could have easily eliminated D here. No, or I'm sorry, yeah, D, knowing full well that that's not his job, okay? Look at question number 7. It says to meet the requirement for a license in Kansas, you have to comply with all of the following except for which one? Which one do you not have to do?
Okay.
Why?
It said you didn't have to.
It said you didn't have to. Why? Because there's no level of education required to get a license in the state of Kansas, right? I don't have to have a college degree. I don't have to have a high school diploma. I don't even have to have a GED. But I do have to have a few other things, and here's another thing I want you to be focusing on during the next 2 days. I told you my job is to get you to learn, right? If you're not learning from me at all times, then we're doing something wrong. Do you know there's 2 reasons why we ask a question like this? Number 1, yes, do we want you to know that there's no level of education required to get your license? Yes. But look at B, C, and D. What is another reason that I asked this question in this way? What can you learn from this question? That B, C, and D are all what?
They're correct.
Yeah, these are things you need to have your license in Kansas, right? So I think I addressed this in the pre-study by saying you have to answer 2 questions. Why is it the right answer, and why can I eliminate the other 3? Looking at these other 3 answers, why did we word it this way? Because yes, you do have to be of legal age, which is what age?
18.
It's 18. Write it down if you don't remember this. You have to pay a non-refundable fee, which is how much?
$30.
$30. Write it down if you don't remember that, and be of good business reputation. So do I want you to know what you don't need? Yeah, sure. But do I moreover care that you know what you do need? Absolutely. Guys, when you're taking this test home, to practice and kind of learn from this, that's what I want you to do. I don't want you to just focus on what the right answer is. Focus on why you eliminated the other 3. What are we trying to teach you there? And you're going to get a lot more questions like that. There's a reason why these questions are worded this way, guys. We didn't just write these just for the heck of it. We wrote them to make sure you're learning from them. Look at number 8. To restore a person back to their original economic position before a loss without provision for gain is one of the oldest principles when it comes to insurance contracts. In fact, I actually seen a contract that was written back in the 1800s, an insurance contract, and they used this word. That insurance contracts are contracts of what? Indemnity. What does indemnity mean? The basic way to describe this, guys, is to be reimbursed. Let me say it in another way, because this to me makes a little bit more sense. To be made whole again. See, why do you carry insurance? Because you have risk. What's going to happen if you have a loss, right? You're going to experience some kind of financial loss or property loss, and you need to have some way of being compensated for that, reimbursed for that. Is insurance always going to help you out with that? No, because sometimes there's going to be cases which you can't get that covered. But in any way, shape, or form, can you ever gain from an insurance contract? Or should you ever gain from insurance? No. Insurance should always be there to allow you to be reimbursed, to be made whole. So do me a favor and underline the word restore. And then write out, and then underline probably what I believe is a more important phrase, and that's without provision for gain. See, if you gain from a situation, that actually violates indemnity, okay? So you cannot have a situation, an insurance contract, where you gain from something. If you do, that's actually illegal, right? We call that insurance fraud. There's people behind bars who learn that the hard way. Okay, so as we're looking at B, C, and D, we'll get to those 3 terms. I'm not ignoring those, but I do have a specific reason why I'm ignoring them for right now. I want to jump down to 9. Number 9 says, which of the following could void a valid contract? Now, the 2 key words to this entire question are the 2 words valid contract. This is a contract that's already in force. Let me ask you a question. If the contract's already in force, could any action on behalf of the insurance company void it?
No.
No, not after it's in force, right? After it's in force, there's only one situation in which something could allow it to be voided out, and that would be an action by who?
The insurance.
The insured. So we're clear on this, right? We understand that if it's a valid contract, there is no way what an insurance company, whatever action they might make, could actually void this contract, right?
Right.
That shouldn't hurt the insured. So with that in mind, let's look at these 4 answers now. If I look at that and that says the medical examiner fails to detect an adverse health condition, is that action binding on the insurance company or the insured?
No.
Who? It's one or the other. It has to be binding on the company or the insured. It's binding on the company. And here's why. Is the medical examiner an employee of the company? No. But are they a legal representative of the insurance company in this case? Yes. And that action binds it to the insurance company, not the insured. The insured will not be held liable for this. Okay? Look at C. The agent, who is a representative of who? The company, knew of the adverse health condition but failed to report it. Is that action binding on the company or is that binding on the insured? The company. The insured did their job, didn't they? They let them know of that condition. Who cares? The agent didn't do their job, so the insurance company now that action is binding on them. And D, the office manager makes a change on the application. That action binding on the company or binding on the insured? Once again. So what did we do here? We kind of had to break it down a little bit. What's a valid contract? It's something that's in force right now. What could force it to be voided? Never an action by an insurance company. And there's 3 actions here that are all binding on an insurance company. But as we look back at B now, look at how that's worded. The applicant, the insured, knew of the adverse health condition, but they failed to report it. Is that binding on them or is that binding on the insurance company? That's them. See what we did there, right? How we and are you going to do this on every single question? No. But on some of them, you're just going to have to find a way to break it down like that, right? Just kind of logistically walk your way through it. I want you to look at 10. It says, if the insurance commissioner has reason to believe an agent is engaged in unfair or deceptive practices, their first action would be to do what? What's the right answer here?
C.
It's C, because of what answer or what word that I kind of overemphasized. Underline it, guys. These words are what I call qualifying words or qualifying phrases. That made all the difference in the world. Why? Because as you're looking at A, B, and D, could all of those eventually happen here? Absolutely they could. So we're not asking what could happen. We're actually asking here what has to happen first. So C is the right answer here. Before A, B, or D could happen here, C has to happen first. Are we all clear on that? Okay. Now, I want to go through my third testing technique here, though, on this question, and here's why. Sometimes when people read through a question, they allow the wording of the question to get the best of them. And they don't actually get weirded out by the answers. It's the question itself, right? The question all of a sudden like, holy crap, what in the world are these people asking for? And it just makes their mind explode, and then they look at these 4 answers and they have no idea what to do. So I would challenge you, if that does happen, there is a way that you can simplify questions on this test. And that is to make them disappear. What do I mean by that? Take your non-dominant hand. Everyone do this right now. I know it sounds silly, I don't care. Take your non-dominant hand, and I want you to cover the wording of this question. I don't want you to look at this question. All I want you doing is looking at all 4 answers. That's it. Okay? Everyone doing it? Mm-hmm. So as you're looking at all 4 answers now, it has no bearing on what the context of the question is. Now you're just looking at 4 answers, and you know one of them has to be right, don't you? Look at all 4 of these answers, and I'm going to challenge you to find, and of course if you've taken class with me before, you can't answer this, but I'm going to challenge you to find a reason why you can actually set apart A, B, and D here. With no context to the question. Remember, we forget what the question is at this point. But what can we kind of summarize, I guess, about A, B, and D? Anything? Let me ask you it this way. Do they share anything in common?
Paid.
What's that?
Paid.
Paid?
Being paid.
Okay. Why would they have to pay? You're on the right track. But what kind of action is this? If they have to pay, that's because they've been what? Found guilty, which means they're being what?
Fine.
Punished. Fined. These are all examples of penalties, right? Everyone look back down at your paper. Look at A, B, and D. Could you all agree with me that these are all examples of a penalty? Of a punitive action? Look at C. Is there anything punitive about C? Is there anything penalizing about C? Guys, if you are left with no other choice than to look at all 4 answers and to put 3 of them in a general category, which is what we did here, right? 3 of these are examples of punishments, and you got one that's got nothing to do with the other 3. Guess what you might have just found? Your right answer. Now, I'm not going to say this is going to work on every question, because it won't, but it will work on some of them. And another way to illustrate this is to talk about one of my kids' favorite shows, especially as they were growing up, and that was Sesame Street. I remember that game that they played where they put a big box up on the television screen. There was one item in each box, and then they sang that little song, one of these things is not like the other. Yeah? Okay. Sometimes people look at me like completely blank faces, like, what? So at least I've got some Sesame Street fans here, that's good. What were they trying to do? They were trying to find the object that didn't what? Belong. Do you realize that's what you did here? You found one answer that just kind of didn't fit in with the other three. At no point during this test should these 4 words ever exit your mouth. Eeny, meeny, miny, or mo. Because you should never leave it up to chance. I'm telling you right now, there will always be some logistical way to eliminate some answers. And here, what did we do? We found 3 answers that looked the exact, or were all kind of categorized the same, and then one that had nothing to do with anything else. Will you look back at number 9? Do you realize that's a test strategy we just used there? We found out, we kind of analyzed it, we had 3 actions that were binding on the company, and only 1 action that was binding on the insured. And what did we find? Our right answer. Okay. So that's the testing strategy. Find the answer that doesn't belong out of those 4. Okay. Number 11, sorry. If a complaint is filed against an agent in this state, the expense for the examination of the agent's business by the insurance commissioner is what? What's the right answer here? D. Yeah, I'm already losing you guys, I know. Just keep with me, we're gonna get through this. So D, paid by the agent examined if the complaint is justified. Why are A and B the wrong answer? Because you've got a really, really bad word here. Always. Guys, on this test, when you see words like always, only, never, cannot, those are all-inclusive words. There's no gray area there. And as we're going to understand over the next 2 days, there's a lot of gray area when it comes to insurance, okay? So when you see words like this, I'm not saying they're always wrong. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying, though, is before you choose them as a right answer, you better be 100% sure. There's no gray area when it comes to always. So when you see these 2 answers, it says always paid by the insurance department. No, because sometimes I'm found guilty. Right? It's only paid by the insurance department if I'm actually found innocent. But look at B, it says always paid by the agent. I don't think so, because sometimes I'm found innocent. But in either one of those cases, are those charges shared? No. And yes, I know it says shard, I apologize for that. I haven't corrected that yet. But it's never shared either. So what did I do? I eliminated A, eliminated B, and eliminated C, and then I'm down here with D. Look at D says, paid by the agent examined only if that complaint was justified. Yes, that is the right answer there. Right? So whenever you're taking these tests, once again, I'm not going to say they're always wrong, but you see words like always, especially always, only, never, just make sure your eyes are aware of those. Don't be tricked by those words. Number 12, a slippery floor is an example of a what?
Hazard.
A hazard. And the reason why it's a hazard is because we're going to break down these 3, the top 3 answers here, A, B, and C. And guys, if you're going to learn anything from this page right here, I need you to know these 3 words. So we're going to break these down in as most simplistic terms as I can give you. I learned very early in life, Mr. Andrew Kemper has to keep things nice and simple, or I make them way too complicated. So I'm going to give you the most simplistic definitions I can for risk, peril, and hazard. A risk is the chance of a loss. That is the most basic definition you're ever going to hear about what a risk is. And think about this. Do we live life with day-to-day risk? Do we live life with the day-to-day risk, the chance that something could happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, is there a chance that a truck could come barreling through this wall right now? Sure. Minimal, right? I'm not going to worry about that too much. But of course, we live life with day-to-day risk, don't we? Okay? So we understand what the idea of risk is. Okay? But let's look at B then now and understand what a peril is compared to a risk. So the risk is the chance that something might happen. The peril is why. It's the cause of a loss. So if a truck were to come barreling through this wall right now, what would be the cause? What would be the peril of that loss? Be the truck, right? The truck caused the damage. So that's what we call vehicle damage. We'll break down that definition after our first break. If my home's totally destroyed by a tornado, what was the peril? Tornado. My home is destroyed by a fire. What's the peril? higher, right? We understand that. And why did something happen? That is the cause of a loss. That is its peril. Okay, and peril is the word you have to know. I mean, we're going to build all of our understanding, especially around property insurance, underneath that one word. And the last one we're going to break down on this question is the word hazard. And a hazard increases the chance of a loss. So I want you to think about this. If I live in Phoenix, or I live in California somewhere, Los Angeles, is there a chance that my home could get destroyed by a tornado?
No.
Yes.
There's a chance. Very, very minimal one though, isn't there, right? Because of their weather patterns out there, that's a very mild chance. However, if I live smack dab in the middle of Tornado Alley, like all of us have decided to do, is there a greater chance that our homes could get destroyed by a tornado? Yeah. That's why people call living in the Midwest a hazard, because we are increasing the chance of that one particular loss, right? But you look at this question here. A floor in general there's a chance I could slip on it, right? But if there's water on it, or if there's a substance on the floor that makes it slippery, is there a greater chance that I'm going to injure myself? Of course there is. So that is what a hazard is. Risk, peril, and hazard. Guys, got to know those. Also need to know what liability is, but we'll break that down later, I promise. I want to jump to 13. Where should an agent send a petition after a revocation of license notice has been given? Where are we sending it?
Any court.
Any court. Hopefully you guys wrote that down because I got to erase it. All right, so, what did I do with the marker? Of course I do that. Okay, so as we're looking at this question now, maybe you remember what the right answer is from your reading. Or maybe if you're anything like me, I had no clue. I'm like, what? I don't even remember reading that. But guys, I'm telling you right now, sometimes you don't need to care about what the right answer is. You need to know why you can eliminate the other three. So I'm going to teach you another testing technique. And it's going to boil down basically to the same philosophy. Take your hand, non-dominant hand, and I want you to cover up this question again. I don't care if you know what the context of this question is whatsoever. I want you to know why you can eliminate the other three. So you're looking at all four answers here. And as you're looking at all four answers, you know that one of them is correct, right? Let's say you don't, though. You're looking at all four of these answers, and you got to find ways to eliminate them. Now, I would challenge you to say there's also not three answers we can kind of fit in one general category and one that doesn't. But I will tell you that there are two answers you can eliminate right now without giving it a second thought. What two answers do you think those are?
B.
A and B. Why?
Same department.
What's that?
They're the same department.
They're the same department? Let me ask it this way. Can I choose A without also choosing B? Because one represents the other, doesn't it? So they're not worded the same, but in essence, aren't they the exact same answer? And on a multiple choice test, if I've got two answers that mean the exact same thing, they're just worded differently, what am I going to do? Eliminate them. Get rid of them. You can't choose one without choosing the other, and of course it's a multiple choice test. Only one answer is right, then get rid of them. Put the odds back in your favor here. Okay? So you eliminated A, you eliminated B. Now I'm also going to tell you you can eliminate C almost just as easy. Knowing one very simple basic fact. Does the Attorney General have any say when it comes to the insurance department? Period. No. The Attorney General doesn't, the Kansas Governor doesn't. So if you see any answers on this test where it says you have to consult with the Attorney General or the Governor or the Kansas Legislature, that's not true whatsoever. Okay? So you can eliminate C here just as easy. Why? Because he has nothing to do with the insurance department. So here's what you did. You eliminated two answers because they were the exact same thing. You eliminated this one because it had nothing to do with the insurance department. And what did you just find? Were you looking for it? No. Did you still come upon it? Yes. Because you're using these elimination techniques, guys. I'm telling you right now, these elimination techniques will save you in this test. You won't know the right answer all the time, and that's okay. There will be other answers, though, you can eliminate. I want to talk about statistics real quick. On a multiple choice test, what is the worst possible grade you can get? Statistically, unless you're purposely trying to get every single question wrong. What's the worst possible grade you can get? 25%, right? 1 out of 4? Okay? So congratulations. Y'all are going to get at least a 25% on this test. Now, obviously, we're not going to stop there, but that's what we did here. So 1 out of 4, 25%. But if I can teach you not to find the right answer, but if I can teach you and you know how to eliminate one answer for every single question, what do your odds automatically jump up to?
50%.
Not 50. 1 out of 3 is 33%, right? I know it's a lot of math for Monday morning. I apologize. But 1 out of 3, 33%. All of a sudden, you're jumping your odds up here. You didn't look for the right answer. You just eliminated one. What about if I can teach you to eliminate 2 answers for every single question? Not looking for the right answer, but you can eliminate 2 of them. What do your odds automatically go up to? Now you can say 50. And if I can teach you to eliminate 3 answers, you didn't look for the right one, you didn't know what the right one was, but boy, you could sure heck eliminate the other 3. What did your odds jump up to? And please don't say 75.
100.
I've gotten 75 way too much, so I was just like, I'll make it easy for you. So 100%, guys, I hope you understand this is why I spend so much time breaking these down. Because this is truly where you make or break your test. You don't make or break your test with the questions that you know. Did I tell you there would be gimmies? Yeah, not that many though. Not enough in my opinion. But will there also be questions you have no clue? I already told you there would be. But in the middle of this test, guys, when you don't know what the right answer is, but you've got enough reasoning to eliminate bad ones, once again, no eeny, meeny, miny, or mo. Do not leave this up to chance. There are ways to eliminate bad answers on this test, okay? So make sure that you wrote down a lot of those testing techniques. One of these things isn't like the other. Find 2 answers that mean the exact same thing. Okay, read the whole darn thing. All of those will definitely help you out. All right, I'll move on now. Number 14. When a new homeowner's or personal auto policy is insured, what is the usual length of time that a company can cancel that policy for any reason? What time frame am I looking for here?
60 days.
It's 60 days, and you have to know this time frame, guys. In fact, for this test, I would actually tell you that a lot of time frames are important on this test. And are there questions where you're able to use elimination techniques? Sure. One of these things is not like the other. 2 of these answers mean the exact same thing, blah, 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 sure. But guys, on number questions, these are either know it or you don't, right? But what is this speaking to? This is saying that if I buy insurance in the state of Kansas, the insurance company can come back to me within that first 60 days, and all they have to tell me is they're canceling me. They don't have to give me a reason. Right? I could have looked at them the wrong way. I could have walked in there wearing a Green Bay Packers shirt, and they said, sorry, we're a Dallas Cowboys office, and we're not going to allow you to be our insured. They can cancel you out for the dumbest reason. They don't have to give you one. Now, let me be very clear. After 60 days, though, can they still cancel you out? Yes. But they can only cancel you out for reasons that are listed in the what? The policy itself, right? So we're not saying that they can't cancel you out after 60 days. We're just saying after 60 days, they have to give you a reason, right? They can't just do it willy-nilly. They have to actually have a concrete reason that's listed in the policy. They can't just make something up, okay? So a couple of key things to remember there. That's the time frame, and know that they can cancel you after 60 days, but for reasons only listed in the policy. Fire. We already went over this. It's considered to be a what?
Cause of loss.
Called a peril, right? That's what a cause of loss is a peril. Of course, we already know what a hazard is. That increases the chance of a loss. The loss, of course, is the property that gets damaged, lost, or stolen. And of course, the risk is the chance of something happening. Number 16, who can cancel a binder?
Insurer.
The insurer, also known as the insurance company, right? And we addressed this in your pre-study as well, but when you see the 2 words insured and insurer, you gotta know the difference between the 2. The test will use these 2 words interchangeably a lot to try and confuse you. So do me a favor, whenever you see the word insurer, read it as insurance company. I'm gonna try and do that. I'm gonna challenge you to do the same. Right, so the insurance company, can they cancel a binder? You bet they can. The agent, they can issue the binder, but they cannot cancel it. Right? They are the ones that are issuing the binder. Why? Because they are the ones that are receiving the money, excuse me, but they cannot cancel it. The commissioner is even involved in the binding process whatsoever. Once again, eliminating one answer because we know he has nothing to do with this. Right? Automatically putting the odds back in our favor here. And a binder can't be canceled once it's been issued. Yeah, it can, but only once again by the insurance company. Okay. Number 17, when does your policy period begin?
When the agent binds the coverage.
When the agent binds the coverage. So once again, talking about the binding process. So once the binding happens, then your policy period begins right then and there. What is the action that binds the coverage? Premium exchange, yeah. They're paying your premium, okay? Paying your premium is what actually starts the binding process. Now, what kind of receipt you get, that's completely up to you. But once the binding happens, that's when your policy period begins. And we're going to need that policy period term. We're going to see that a lot, excuse me, especially in chapter chapter 1. Number 18, a foreign insurance company. We need to understand this about a foreign insurance company, that it's all home offices. Right? Can they sell business in the state of Kansas? Of course they can. But their home office is located where? In another state. So wouldn't that also make sense then that their laws would be structured in that state? Right? Their offices are structured in that state. Everything is centered around that state. It doesn't matter if they're selling business in Kansas or not. Okay? So a foreign insurance company has its home office located in another state, is structured under the laws of that state. But there's also two other terms, though, you need to know that are kind of synonymous with foreign insurance companies. And the first one is domestic. You want to write that term down. What is a domestic insurance company? It's one that's allowed to sell business in the state of Kansas, but their home offices are located where?
In another state?
Nope. A domestic insurance company has its home offices located here in the state of Kansas. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas, ironically enough, is a domestic insurance company. Why? Because not only do they sell business in Kansas, but their home offices are located in Topeka, Kansas. Okay? So if they are structured under the laws and they're based in this state, they are domestic. Also, need to know this term, an alien insurance company. What is an alien insurance company? Can they sell business in Kansas? You bet they can, but their home offices are located where?
Out of the country.
Out of the country. Okay? So you need to know all three of these terms. Foreign, they're based in another state. Domestic, they're based in this state. And alien, they are based out of the country. All three of them, though, have no problem selling business in the state of Kansas. Right? Mutual of Omaha, they sell a ton of business in the state of Kansas. Are they located here? No. They're located in Nebraska. Lloyd's of London, one of the oldest insurance companies in the entire world. Can they sell business in Kansas? Sure they can. Not as much as they used to, but they can. Where are they located? London, England. Okay, so these are all examples of companies that can sell business in Kansas. They don't have to be based here. Number 19. The following are all unfair trade practices, except you need to know what an unfair trade practice is. Okay. Hopefully that term is ringing a bell. You already know what it is. But if I was going to kind of classify it in one word, it's the word bad. All right? These are all bad things. As you're looking at A, B, and C, and D here, these are all bad except for one. Which one's actually not bad? Replacement. Replacement's not bad. Why? Because if it were, us as insurance agents, we'd all be in huge trouble. Because people aren't out there buying insurance brand new all the time, right? What are they doing? They're replacing one policy with another, okay? But if you're replacing one policy with another, there is one cardinal rule, and you cannot forget this. If you replace somebody's policy with another, you always have to be making their position better. You can never, ever, ever make their position worse. What does that mean? If you're replacing their policy, you've got to be increasing their benefits, you've got to be lowering their premium, you've got to be finding a way to put them in a better position than they were before you replace the policy. Why? Because if you don't, that is an unfair trade practice. You replace somebody's policy to their harm, or another way we word this, if you see where I'm going with this, down to number 20 here, replacing somebody's policy to their detriment is an unfair trade practice called what? Twisting. Okay? So twisting is an unfair trade practice. So replacement can be bad if you don't make your client's position better than it was. Okay. I've got a good friend of mine who sells business here in the state, or just right down the road here actually, and she quotes me about every 6 months to a year. She can never make my position better. So even as much as I want to be her client, I can't, because she can't make my position any better. Okay. So no point can you replace somebody's policy to make their position worse. Also need to know some of these other terms. Let's jump back up to A and D on 19, because these are both unfair trade practices that you need to know. What is rebating? Rebating is offering somebody something in return for buying insurance from you. Now I know the term rebating has a different kind of context outside of the insurance industry. Who cares? For this test, that's what it means. It's offering somebody something in return. And where does this typically happen? With someone's commission. Right? So let's just say my new friend Steve here, I know that you're out there trying to buy insurance, and it's between me and another agent. I can't come to Steve and say, hey Steve, if you choose me over this other agent, I'm going to give you a percentage of the commission I'm going to make off your sale. Can I do that? No, because I put myself in an unfair position now over the other agent. And one thing the state of Kansas tries to do is maintain fairness across all company lines, okay? So I can't do that, right? If I were to do that, then that could definitely be called rebating, okay? However, if you are already my client, and you refer me to your neighbor down the street, and your neighbor becomes a client, can I reward you for that?
Yeah.
Of course I can. It's called a loyalty gift, guys. That's not rebating, all right? So you got to know the difference between the two. And also you got to know the term coercion. What is coercion? Coercion is using your position of authority to force someone to buy something from you. And see, typically this doesn't happen with one person. This happens with organizations. Some organizations now, I'm not going to name specific ones, but some organizations have gotten in trouble recently because they force their clients, force their customers to buy insurance from one particular agent or one particular company. You can't do that. Let's talk about this in more general terms. When you buy a house, the company you get your mortgage through, can they require you to have insurance?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. And they will, right? It would be financially irresponsible for them to provide a mortgage for you if that house isn't insured, especially if it's a newer house, right? So they can force you to have insurance. However, can they force you to buy insurance from the agent that just happens to be in-house?
No.
No. They can't do that. They can't say, okay, now that we're done with this, let me introduce you to my buddy Rex over here. He's going to go and take good care of you. You can use whatever agent you want. You have to have insurance, but you don't have to use theirs. Okay? So that's what coercion is. It's using your position of authority to force somebody to buy something from you. We're also going to go over that term misrepresentation here in just a second, but I want to jump down to 21, excuse me. Under the jurisdiction of the Unfair Trade Practices Act, advertisements can be considered to be all of the following except for which one? Which one just kind of doesn't even fit here?
D.
Yeah, I mean, D doesn't really fit. Policies issued by the federal government. Advertising rules really don't apply. Federal government advertising have their own rules. But what I want you to understand is B and C were easy to eliminate, right? We understand these are advertisements, but do you understand that what you say, the verbal use of every single thing that comes out of your mouth can be binding against your insurance company? Even if they don't approve of what you say?
Yeah.
What you say can be binding back on them. So can what you say, your words, be used as an advertisement or be considered an advertisement? Absolutely. Okay. That's why sometimes, especially when you start off with insurance companies, what do they have you do? Memorize a script, because they want to make sure they know what you're saying. Okay. All right. Looking at number 22, all of the following have restricted rights in an insurance contract, except for which one?
A.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
No.
Right? I mean, out of these four, that's the only one that doesn't make sense. You're retired, so we're going to restrict your rights. No, that makes no sense. Come on. But as you're looking at minors, intoxicated, or insane people, could they have their rights restricted? Yeah, and maybe even just taken away, period. They may not even get approved. Number 23, when can an agent use statistics in advertising during a sales presentation? If you don't know the answer to this, that means you've been asleep for the last hour, because we've actually addressed this 2 or 3 times already, and that is when it's approved by your company. Okay. So that's the only answer you can choose here. 24, if you're denied insurance because of your driving record, what law requires the insurance company to notify you of the reasons for that denial?
Unfair trade.
The Unfair Trade Practices Act. Yeah, I mean, guys, if they don't tell you, they can deny you, sure. But now they have to tell you why. And the reason why they have to tell you is because you can contest it. Be like, wait a minute, that's a dumb reason. You're not going to approve me because of that, right? They have to tell you not only that you've been denied or rated up or your rates have changed for whatever reason, but now they have to tell you why. If they don't, that could be considered an unfair trade practice, okay? Got to know those terms. Number 25, when an insurance company wants to advertise in this state, what do they have to submit to the Kansas Insurance Department? Letter of compliance. See, I thought it was D. D made sense to me. Sure, send them all a copy of your advertisements. Oh, until someone told me that there's over 2,000 insurance companies that sell business in the state of Kansas. Yeah, I don't think Topeka wants all of them sending copies of their advertisement, so no, that is the wrong answer here. But if I'm gonna sell business in the state of Kansas, I have to submit a letter stating I'll comply with all advertising laws for that state, okay? Number 26, what information must be included in an agent's advertisement? So I'm gonna put up a billboard, I'm gonna put out a business card, I'm gonna put an advertisement in a phone book. Those even exist anymore. What two pieces of information have to be on that advertisement? Your full name and your phone number. Absolutely. But it would make sense as you're looking at B, C, and D why these would not be the right answer, right? I mean, if you kind of logistically walk through this, if I work for American Family, I'm not going to put the address in Madison, Wisconsin on here. I don't have to put my insurance company's home office address. I don't have to put my office hours, and I definitely don't want to give them my personal address and phone number unless I want to be a really involved agent. Getting, phone calls and door knocks at 3 a.m. in the morning, yeah, probably don't want to do that. 27. What is the maximum fine for an unintentional violation after an agent has been found guilty by the insurance commissioner and placed under a cease and desist order? How much is it?
$1,000.
It's $1,000. Now, there's two key reasons why this answer is $1,000. Underline the words unintentional. That's the easy one to find out. But also underline the word violation. Because guys, sometimes people argue with me on this question. They're like, is it the right answer D? It's not. And the reason why you might have thought the right answer was D is because you may have read the question like this. Unintentional violations. It's not what it says. So you can't put words there. You can't even put letters there that aren't there. Okay, you gotta slow down. Make sure you're reading the whole darn thing. This is asking about how much they can charge for one violation, and it's $1,000. Okay, but as we just learned a couple pages back, is $1,000 all you're going to pay if you're found guilty? No, because what else are you going to pay for? Court costs. Yeah, so write that down, guys. Next to $1,000, right? Plus court costs or hearing costs, right? Because remember, if you're found guilty, don't you have to pay for those as well? Only if you're found innocent are those actually going to be paid for by the insurance department. Number 28, the Unfair Claims Settlement Act. Also something you need to know, requires all of the following here except for which one. So this is a really, really important question, guys, because you've got a bunch of time frames here, a lot of good facts. It's almost like you can boil it down to a true or false question, right? 3 of these answers are dead on true, but one of them is false. Which one's false?
C.
Why? Not only do you have to know what the right answer is, but you have to know why. The insurance company in the state of Kansas has to settle claims within how many days from the date they agree to pay? It's 30. Nice job, Maria. Yep. If you remember that from your pre-study, it's not 60, it's 30. Write it down, guys. That is specific to the state of Kansas. They have to settle all claims within 30 days from the date they agree to pay. Okay, so it was close, but it wasn't right. 60 days was the incorrect answer there. Or it was the false statement, so that obviously made it the correct answer in this case. Number 29. All of the following are unfair claim settlement practices except for which one? So once again, you're dealing with terms that can be best defined as bad. These are all bad things, ways we wouldn't want the insurance company to act except for one of them. Which one is actually the way we want them to act?
C.
Yeah. Right, as you're looking at A, B, and D here, I think we could classify all 3 of these answers under bad, right? If you misrepresent, what does that mean? You give false information of pertinent facts or policy provisions, yeah, that's a bad thing. You fail to acknowledge or act promptly with respect to a claim, that's a bad thing. And then of course D, if you attempt to settle a claim because the application was altered without the knowledge or consent of your insured, that's a bad thing as well. Right, but as we already addressed, C is a very good thing, and they have to do this, providing a prompt and reasonable explanation for denial of a claim. Number 30, an insurance contract that indemnifies the insured to the actual amount of the loss or to a stated amount is called a contract that is a what? Reimbursement contract, because remember, to indemnify someone means to reimburse them or make them whole again. Number 31. If an individual faces the risk of economic loss in the event of property damage or loss of life, this is represented by some of the most 2 key words you're going to find when it comes to property and casualty insurance. And that is you have to prove that you have what? Insurable interest. So let me just kind of explain it this way. I just met Tamara here. Tamara, can I come buy homeowner's insurance on your house? Why? Am I in a position of financial loss if something were to happen to your house? No. Right? I'm not in a position of financial loss if something is going to happen to your house. Right? If I was able to buy homeowner's insurance on Tamara's house, right, and Tamara were away on vacation, just saying something might happen to her house while she's away. Just we don't know who did it. Right? That's how CSI episodes start out, right? But see, here's the idea, guys. I can't buy homeowner's insurance on your house because I would have had to have been in a position of financial loss if anything would have happened. Am I in a position of financial loss though if something happens to my house?
Sure.
Of course I am. So I have insurable interest in that. Okay? So we're all clear on what insurable interest means. You also though have to be very, very clear about when it has to be proven. All right, so you have to write this down as well, because in a property or a property and casualty loss or a property and casualty claim, insurable interest has to be proven at the time of the what?
The loss.
The loss. That is absolutely correct. See, in some lines of insurance, we're not going to say which ones because I don't want to confuse you, but insurable interest is actually proven at a different time. But for P&C, property and casualty claims, insurable interest has to be proven when it is lost. See, I can buy property insurance on something and then sell that property to someone else and still keep that policy in force, couldn't I? The insurance company is none the wiser. But if something happens to that property now and I go to them, I'm like, hey, I have a policy on that. Yeah, prove that it's yours. Because if I can't prove that it's mine now, they're not going to pay that claim. Okay? So insurable interest is a huge term, guys. You just have to know it. Number 32, if a person deliberately withholds information on an application for insurance, they are guilty of what?
Concealment.
That's concealment. Now, someone may have accidentally chose misrepresentation here because you saw the word application. Because as you read through your pre-study, you know what a misrepresentation is, right? A misrepresentation is when you put a statement on your application that actually ends up being what? Wrong or false. Does that happen intentionally?
No.
Sometimes. Does it happen unintentionally? Sometimes, right? So next to the word misrepresentation here, just write out. It's a statement made on your application that is false. You believed it to be true, but it's false. Will it void out your coverage though? Not always. Guys, I could misspell my name. I could put in a wrong phone number. I could put in a wrong address. That's not going to affect my coverage. That's just me kind of being too quick when filling out the app, right? So a statement made on your app that's wrong isn't necessarily going to void your coverage here. But now I want you to look at this question again. With that in mind, why is the answer not misrepresentation? Because look at what it says. If a person deliberately withholds information. See, misrepresentations are about statements that get made on an application. This question is asking about a statement that never got made to begin with. See, they withheld information from us, right? They hid it. What's another word for hide? Conceal. See, they concealed information. Why does someone do that? Why would they conceal information? Because they probably know if they give us the right information, they'd probably get turned down, right? That's what concealment is. Not giving any information because you know if you did, it would probably get you turned down for your coverage. Number 33, within 30 working days of their occurrence, a licensed agent must report to the Commissioner of Insurance all of the following except for which one? Which one do you think?
Minor.
Yeah. Minor traffic violations? Yeah. If that happened every single time any agent in this state got a minor traffic violation, yeah, the producer's office wouldn't like that too much. Right? They don't need to know about that crap, but they do need to know if you've been convicted of a misdemeanor or felony. I actually just had this happen about 4 or 5 months ago where one of my former students came up to me and said, hey, this happened over the weekend. What do I do? I said, you call the insurance department right now. You let them know before they find out. Because if they find out and you haven't told them, they aren't anywhere near as forgiving. Now, of course, unfortunately in that situation, the felony that he was convicted of kept him, or actually lost him his license anyway. But you never, ever, ever want to actually have the insurance company find out something if you haven't told them first, okay? And the same reason goes with D, right? Any actions of a disciplinary nature against your license, make sure they know about it. Now, why also do they need to know about your name change or address change? Because they want to be in touch with you, right? Especially when it comes to your continuing ed, right? They're going to send you notice saying, hey, it's getting time closer toward your CE. We want to make sure you get in on time. That way you don't lose your license. So they want to be in touch. So even if it's something as small as you got married or you moved, or if you even changed your phone number, please let them know so they can keep all that updated. Number 34, in theory, an insurable risk, underline that two-word phrase, insurable risk should include all of the following characteristics except for which one? Which one made no sense here? The loss has to be catastrophic? How about, thank God, most often isn't, right? They can cover catastrophic losses, but they don't have to. Sorry. The loss doesn't have to be catastrophic. However, guys, A, B, and C, in my opinion, are some of the most important answers on this entire pre-study test. Because you will, at some point, all eyes up here, you will, at some point in this test, have this run through your brain. Is this going to be covered or not? Right? You're going to be forced with a position to say, is this going to be covered or not? Guys, if you can't get through these three answers and say yes, 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 and yes, then that is not an insurable risk. That's not something that can be covered. You've got to ask yourself these three questions. Number one, was your loss definite in time, place, and amount? See, if your loss wasn't definite in time, place, and amount, no insurance company is going to cover it. Okay? I told you I live in an old house in Park City. There's cracks in the walls. Can I prove when that happened? It just happens over time, right? Rust, deterioration, crap like that. You can't actually go to the insurance company and say, that happened at 12:38 p.m. that day. No, you did not. That just happens over time. You can't prove that. So if a loss is not definite in time, place, and amount, you cannot probably buy insurance on it, okay? Or you cannot get a claim covered for it. The second one is, the loss has to cause an economic hardship. Speaking to what two-word phrase that we just learned at the beginning of this page? You have to prove what?
Insurable.
Insurable interest, right? The loss has to cause an economic hardship. You can't just say, oh, well, yeah, I lost this piece of property. Yeah, prove that that actually caused you a financial loss. Because if it didn't, no insurance company is going to cover that, okay? So it has to be definite in time, place, and amount, has to cause a financial loss, and the last one, and this one is almost as important as everyone else, the loss has to be accidental. You want the easiest way to know if something's going to be covered by an insurance policy or not. If it was done on purpose, it won't be. Let me just be very clear on that. You see any wording on this test about an intentional act, a premeditated act, something that was expected, something that was intended, that will never be covered by insurance. Insurance is there to cover accidents, not intentional acts, okay? Everyone clear on that? So all three of these are so important. I hope you underlined all three of them. Ask yourself all three of these questions to find out if a risk is going to be covered by your insurance company. Or a loss, excuse me. Number 35, an agent's records must be given to the commissioner when? Yeah, whenever he darn well wants, right? He has a lot of duties, but if one of his duties and one of the things he does is he comes and he knocks on your door, or more often than not, he'll just send you something in the mail, and he's asking for your records, or if you're an insurance company and he's asking to look at your reserves, you have got to give him that information. You cannot withhold that. That is 100% something that he has every single right to do. And last one, 36. An advertisement includes all of the following here, except for the one that just didn't make sense, and that, of course, was which one?
Inter-office.
Yeah, an inter-office memo. Why is it inter-office? Because it's got the words for office use only. You're not supposed to share this information with your clients. This is not information we want shared with the public. Typically, what is it? It's like a sales contest, right? Or it's some kind of update on numbers. You can't go to your clients and say, hey, help me get to France, right? I'm second on the list. You can't do that. So you've got any information that is given with that heading for office use only, you can't use that with the public. But everything else there, printed, published material, billboards, sales talks by agents, absolutely. All examples of advertisements, okay? All right, so we spent a lot of time breaking that test down, but hopefully now you understand why. There's a ton of information in that. Now, did it go over everything that you're going to be tested on in the pre-study? No. Guys, it'll give you other questions over different types of risks, like morale risks, moral risks. Got to know the difference between those. Need to know the difference between pure risk and speculative risks. Okay? There's a lot of information that isn't even addressed in that pre-study test that you very well could see a question or two on. Also, crop insurance, that's in your pre-study. Flood insurance, that's in your pre-study. Redlining, right? A couple others. Patriot Act. A couple of these other things that I know people have called me and said, Andrew, you didn't go over this in class. I didn't because I didn't have time. Okay, you've got to take some personal responsibility on yourself to go back and review that pre-study and know it very, very well. Okay.